Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Sprung. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we found out about Jack's circumstances. Well, we kind of got a little bit of his backstory about the fact is that, we got to see how he got arrested and everything. I guess the cops were just keeping an eye on this and come like, oh, how'd you, stumble across him? And, I mean, to be fair, he was on the run, and then he was, I don't think those were the same cops that were after him initially, but he just happens to, skateboard by some other cops. And just everything that could go wrong went wrong. It was his second offense, so he got the bare minimum. He got the minimum, which was 15. But then you stack on top of the fact is he was 1,000 feet within the school, so he ended up getting 30 years. Of Jesus. And he was going to serve that full sentence because he still had. If it wasn't for this coronavirus thing, he still would have been in there another 4 years. So. It's man, that's harsh. I mean, it's always interesting because, I'm not well versed in the law, but it's crazy, what can compound like that. The fact is, he got, double the sentence simply because he was, within a school when he had the weed on him and got arrested, or maybe when the police initially started chasing him. I'm surprised that at no point did he decide not to just, to be fair, it's a large bag of weed, he wants to, obviously, not large, it's large bags of weed, but I was like, why not just toss it at any point in time? But I'm like, right, you don't want to take the chance that disappears, and there's no guarantee you're going to be able to come back and get it, so you're probably going to hold tight to it. But I felt like the typical thing, the criminal thing typically would, but I guess it's right, you're probably a high schooler, you're not a criminal mastermind, so you're not thinking about that stuff of probably want to dash that along the way, because that way, they won't actually catch you with anything, but either way, it's kind of sad. It seems like he got arrested, on his front lawn. So, even sadder when you add in the fact is, because apparently Gloria was under the impression his parents were dead because he kind of told her that story. But it's he's yeah, I told you that because your parents are dead and I didn't want to feel like I was bragging. So, I just told you mine were gone. Obviously, just Gloria finding out more and more about, how much of a liar he is. Because she's well, at least you're not one of those people that stayed in his hometown and stuff. And he's just kind of quiet. She's you didn't pack through Europe or whatever, did you? And it's nope. It's did anything you tell me what? He's no, I told you the truth sometimes, but lying is a slippery slope. Once you start lying, you have to tell more and more lies to cover for it. And just you just start, it just starts, trickling down from there. So, but it turns out also some other interesting things. First and foremost, the person Gloria was looking into, the congresswoman, I thought that was someone she knew. It seems right, she's just a bad person. It's we can take this opportunity because Barb was trying to find some other people because it's, Jack's got his kind of Robin Hood thing going on. So it's right, we only steal from very bad people. Very leverage-esque. Elements to it, which obviously leverage redemption, well, both leverage and leverage redemption are on this, so it's very befitting. But regardless, and so he turns down everyone on her list because it's no, I'm not going after people who did something to Rooster because Rooster did something to them first, and so she's making her way down the list, and it's I guess everyone on her list fit that narrative of okay. And that's when Gloria presented the congresswoman. So it's right, she was kind of the perfect person, but because of, and I will not, trying to skirt on by using someone else's Wi-Fi, her neighbors. So it's and her understanding of right, whoever's on the other end of the computer, I kill time because it takes a very long time, and just oh my God, it's which... It's an exaggeration, obviously, but immediately I'm oh God, it reminds me of dial-up. It feels that wasn't that long ago. That was 15 years ago, the last time we used dial-up in my house while I was in high school, before we got better and faster internet. I mean, that affected me just because it's made it super hard to watch anime on dial-up. Regardless, I'm not going to go down that whole tangent of things, but yeah, it just kind of made me think about that. I was nah, that was literally half a lifetime ago for me. Either way. But she's under the impression there's someone looking up stuff on the other end, but Rooster's oh no, it takes time for they most likely got a robot looking up stuff in these encyclopedias and phone books and stuff like that, so. But, so they can't really find the information. But it's like her, and it seems like I had thrown it out there last episode. It's like, well, maybe she's not necessarily getting catfish. It's like, oh no, she's definitely getting catfish, or not even just catfish. She's getting scammed, because it's like, oh, like so and so had to sell their webcam to pay for like their parents' surgery or like something because their parents are sick or something like that. It's like, oh wow, she's getting taken advantage of. It's like, but it could just be like it doesn't have to necessarily be like a scam. It could legitimately be a catfish thing, but like with the money involvement, you're like, oh, it's definitely a scam then. So, but also at the same time this is all happening, Jack gets sick, which for the first time, like, yeah, they were like, what, I brought it up last episode, they seemed so whatever about like about COVID, but like Jack seemed the one that was super, but it's like, no, obviously they're afraid of getting sick because they were like, oh, get away from us. So they're kind of quarantining him and everything. And it's like, right, the moment your sense of smell goes away, they're like, you're pretty much done. Once again, it's that thing of like, man, it just once again, this is still like early days of no one really knowing anything. I should also really quickly throw this out here because I thought it was such a fascinating thing when I found it out. Maybe people who watch Fear the Walking Dead already knew this, but so if you know, I brought it up last episode. The thing I know Garrett Dillahunt best for is John Dory Jr. on Fear the Walking Dead. Well, Martha Plimpton, I hope I'm butchering her name, which they were in Saving Hope together. Well, her dad is Keith Carradine. I had no idea. Well, what makes that really interesting, if you haven't watched Fear the Walking Dead, Keith Carradine played John Dory Sr. So it's like, oh, so like her real life dad played your TV dad, and you guys have already worked together. So I'm like, that casting had to be done on purpose. I wonder if people who are familiar with Saving, have I been Saving Hope? Saying Saving Hope? I meant Raising Hope, because there's a medical drama show, kind of a supernatural medical drama show with Erica Durance and Michael Shank. Is it Shanks? Called Saving Hope, so that's where I'm kind of like messing up, but it's Raising Hope. If I said Saving Hope before, I meant Raising Hope. Either way, like, that casting had to be done on purpose. I thought that was such a fascinating thing. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, that had to be done on purpose. Either way, putting all that aside, Barb not wanting the government to have her social security number. It's like, well, they already have your note. She's like, not my new one. So let's go to like this place where they could, give you a test, for COVID, if you pay cash. And it's a vet who's got to keep up appearances. So it tests your animals and then tests you. But then we find out the super fucked up thing is that they literally don't even bother checking. It's like, okay, so what do you decide? And shaking an 8-ball to make the decision. I was like, that is super messed up, dude. Holy shit. But I mean, it worked out because it gave them a new target to hit. It's like, oh yeah, like Mr. Goody Two Shoes is going to like that, Because I love that at one point she was like watching and she's like, wait, I thought you were coming up with a plan. He's like, no, I thought you were coming up with a plan. She's like, what, you can't walk and think at the same time? He was like, no, I've never really tried. He's like, I have to sit down like when I'm thinking. And she's like, oh, you get that from me. I'm like, oh, because I love that Gloria's like, she doesn't want Jack to die, not like because she cares about him or anything, but it's like, no, I think she eventually will warm up to him, like when they spend enough time together. But it comes down to, she's like, you're not a genius or anything, but you're definitely smarter than, leaving me with these two morons to go commit crimes. It's like, no, I need someone of at least some like decent intelligence to kind of like help put all this stuff together. Also, poor, Rooster walking by and Melvin being like, hey, in case you didn't see it, Rooster, it's your girlfriend. And yes, we are having sex. Yeah, we're having sex like all the time, a lot, in case you didn't hear me. And it's like, well, my son is done dating strippers. And then, what was it? Melvin said like that. Well, that's a stupid life decision. Aw. And you can tell Wiggles does feel bad because she was ducking down because, well, we don't know why they broke up, but they just did. And you can tell there's still something there because when she's kissing Melvin and stuff, she's looking at Rooster, who's looking back at her. She feels bad about it. She didn't want to like start anything up. She didn't want to hurt him. And I think it's just a thing of like, yeah, they obviously still care for each other, which, like I brought up last episode, is definitely going to be an issue. So We also found out about Gloria. She's like, oh yeah, she went to college and everything for like a psychology degree and stuff, because it's like, right, it's a lot more like she prefers kind of the route her life took rather than going to like, you know, helping people diagnose like people's mother issues. And she's looking at Rooster. Rooster's like, why are you looking at me? Mommy, why is she looking at me? It's like, well, because she thinks she's so smart. Because like Barb had that whole thing about why she thinks like the chimney is called the chimney chute, and she's like, oh, she connects it to the Spanish flu. It's like, no, that's not it. It's like, you fancy pants. It's like you went to college. It's like, oh, did you study fireplaces? And she's like, no, exactly. Case in point. But I also love, it's like we found out, Rooster, they nicknamed him Rooster not because he had like a pet rooster or anything. It's because he played Rooster. I forgot what play she was referencing. And it's like, oh, but what's his real name then? And she's like, I actually don't know. It's been so long. She's like, I want to say it's Paul. That's sad when your own mother knows you by your nickname because she doesn't even call you by your government name anymore. That's wild. Probably don't want to let Rooster know that. Once again, I love that theme of everything he learned in prison. He's implying it to robbing places. It's like, right, if you're going to go to a place, don't do it early in the morning. Do it like just when the place closed, because just in case people do see you, because you're going to look super suspicious like early in the morning, like, but it's like if you do it like right when you're closing, people are just going to assume you work there. I was like, that's really smart. I also love that they were playing like, it looked like it was them playing checkers with chips and Oreos. I like that. Hey, you gotta make it work. And learn how to pick a lock, even pick a safe, crack a safe. To be fair, if he wasn't like, if his ears weren't plugged up, if he wasn't sick, then that wouldn't be as much of an issue, but still. And the whole thing with Mr. Nuts, the squirrel, his mom not wanting him to keep the pet. And it's like, Mr. Nuts seemed like pretty like chill and everything. It's like, everything's good. He does like me. And did his mom like hit the dashboard just to freak the squirrel out and attack her? So I'm like, that is kind of jacked up. You're saying like you're trying to protect your son, but you actively put him in a situation where the animal would like, but you're trying to prove the point that the animal is wild and rabid and you can't like trust it. But it turns out Mr. Nuts ended up getting hit by a father and his daughter who brought the squirrel to the veterinary clinic, and it was really sweet. His mom is like, yeah, every animal you've ever had like ends up like hurting you, and as your mom, it's my job to protect you. So it comes from a place of, a loving place, but then all of a sudden, like, what was it? That rooster ends up trying to resuscitate the squirrel, but it ended up working. I thought we were going to end up in a crazy situation where like he was going to do that, but the squirrel was going to explode from him blowing air into its shit. Like I thought something jacked up, like that was happening. It's like, oh no, the squirrel's fine, but then it bites his lip, and then his mom ends up killing it. So kind of a sad ending. So, but I also love the whole thing too of like, what was it? Bleach and some other chemicals that Barb ended up putting in a glass and stuff because she was trying to like, right, that's how you fight COVID, is with like, they were going to fight it with like chemicals and stuff like that, which is a big no-no not to do that. Don't drink chemicals like bleach. That's a big no-no. And it's like, right, I only have enough for both of us. So they were ready to clink glasses until ultimately Jack ended up finding out from his parents, I'm not sick, I'm just like allergic to wolves. So that's what was setting this all off. So they immediately poured the glasses. I was like, are you really? I was like, are they? But then like, okay, never mind. I was like wondering, like, cause they cut away when she was setting that all up for them, like spraying their glasses after pouring bleach in it and everything. I was like, oh boy. But it was really sweet when Gloria ended up setting up the whole thing so that he could talk, because she tracked down his parents, and they're in a, what was it, like a retirement home in San Diego, and he hadn't talked to his parents in all this time. They reached out to him, but he kept denying them because he felt bad. He felt ashamed of what he had done. So they used to send him letters all the time, but it eventually stopped when he never replied. And so getting to talk to his parents again after all this time, them being being like, oh my God, like, look at how much you've grown. It's like, wait, is that your cell because you've misbehaved or something? It's like, no, like, I got out and everything. It's like, don't worry, guys, I'm going to call you tomorrow. And it's like, I mean, it sucks that, sadly, like, that 26 years can't never be gotten back between him and his family. But at the very least, he has this time, which, that's something at the very least. And obviously, even if like and obviously it plays into like the very heartbreaking circumstances of a big part of the pandemic was a lot of people couldn't visit like their older like relatives, like especially if your parents were on the older side, you couldn't be around them and stuff like that. So some people were fortunate enough to be in a situation where they still could be. Not everyone was that fortunate, and in his particular case, he can't see his parents because of well, he can now because he's not sick. So, well, no, because even if he can't, even if he doesn't have COVID, it's still protocol to like you can't really visit the people you care about. I was about to say, but I'm like, yeah, I forgot. Like, yeah, because that didn't really come up in my my circumstances because obviously both of my some of my grandparents have already like passed well before now, so like I didn't really have that experience, but I know that's a heartbreaking story that too many people had during the pandemic. Well, once again, we still kind of have that, but it's not what it was, especially at the height of things back then, But I loved him being able to kind of reconnect with his family, and him doing something good with once again doing his Robin Hood thing of taking all of that information from the laptop and reimbursing everyone that the clinic was cheating out of their their money and giving them fake test results and stuff. So everyone got their money back, and then our stinger at the end is exactly what I thought. I was like, the last thing we need is Wiggles to see that picture of Rooster's penis, and lo and behold, she sees it. So Melvin's going to find out. You quickly piece that together, but because they are part of like the picture they use for the show, I'm assuming Melvin and Wiggles will be like. I mean, maybe they're just going to be like main characters in the show, but I'm assuming they're eventually going to join forces with Barb and them. It's like, right, let's run this scam together. Like that's going to they're going to be all in like the crime family of sorts. Like they're going to join it. Maybe, maybe not, we'll see. But it's like, well, Melvin's not that smart. And then also, Wiggles isn't either, but you can join that with, like, Rooster and Barb as well. So, it might be, two smartish people with four idiots type of thing. So if that's what it comes out to be, maybe it is going to be like a Melvin is going to be against him, so maybe he's just going to be a recurring like main character in that regard, but maybe it's not going to be like, oh, he's part of like their operations. We'll see. I'm curious to see ultimately how they handle that. I wasn't expecting episode 2 to be the episode that Melvin finds out. I thought that would have been like maybe like a couple episodes into the season. Nope, episode 2. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see where that kind of all ends up taking us. But there's also the situation of the ending. I really like where it's like, okay, so like it seems like every episode is going to have a different like ending like thing. Last episode was Jack jumping on the trampoline. Now it's Barb and her Q-tips that she stole from the clinic. And just kind of like how like orgasmic it is apparently to like it's the thing of like you're not supposed to like obviously that's kind of the big thing of it all, like not you supposed to use Q-tips. That is so wild to think about, like something that's so like unanimously like a thing that people always use a Q-tip for, even though it's like you're super not supposed to use them for that. I actually don't even know what well, I was about to say like I know you can use it to get samples for stuff and but it's like, it's not meant to like clean your ears and stuff. But I was like, yeah, just something not 100% used for its original purpose. I mean, isn't that kind of how a lot of things in the world works? But I can assume going forward, their next target yet again is going to be the congresswoman that Gloria is kind of sending them after. I'm curious to see if that ends up being like the next episode, or is like, is that going to be like the big job and there's going to be like smaller jobs eventually leading up to it? Because, well, they're in the process of gathering information because Gloria is too busy like helping, Jack with his whole parent situation, so that she hasn't really looked into the congresswoman yet, so we'll see how things play out in the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.